Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod, media mogul Barry Diller on the election and the fate of our country.
The one thing I really want, really badly, is for it to be decisive. I want it to be over tomorrow night. Right.
He's chairman of Expedia and IAC, and he's weighing in on the media deals making headlines.
I think Comcast is better with them, but if they do spin all these off, that would be a really solid enterprise.
Plus, the rest of the news that got us squawking, like another big stock sale at Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway.
What do you think he is getting ready for?
And a shakeup in the Dow Jones Industrial Average that pushes chipmaker Intel, a key beneficiary of the Chips and Science Act, off the blue chip index.
Would the government have bet on MySpace? The instances where the government is better than just market forces is very rare.
It's Monday, November 4th, 2024. One day left. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernen and Andrew Ross Sorkin. It is election week, and the markets are gearing up, getting things ready to go.
Let's talk about the shakeup in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the 30 stock benchmark, adding now Nvidia and Sherman Williams and booting Intel and Dow Inc. S&P Dow Jones indices, which manages the average, saying the changes made to ensure a more representative exposure to the semiconductor and materials sector. Change will be effective prior to the open of trading on Friday. And of course, it is also not only a boon to Nvidia, but a knock.
Do you remember
Intel.
Last time we were talking that they should do this? Remember I said, come on, Dow, let's go. Or S&P is the one who does it.
They should have done it before it made the
We're now in a perfect position for you know what? In the past, we've said, wow, Apple's already made its move. Why are they doing it now? And then it doubled.
And Apple continued to climb.
But it's hard to imagine Nvidia goes to double where it is. But
it's not expensively priced if you're looking at what.
And Intel is no longer the bellwether.
Sales.
There's no way you can argue that Intel is the bellwether for chips in the U.S. Sherwin Williams, I was shocked. I think employees were like, wait a second. What? Did I hear that?
Paint?
Were you expecting Sherwin Williams?
No.
Dow it was all the way down to 30 or 40. I was surprised.
What's the market cap?
I was surprised that Dow,
Williams?
90 billion. I was surprised that Dow Inc. was still in there. All right, so it's good.
Semafor now reporting that policymakers in Washington have begun quietly discussing scenarios if Intel should need more assistance beyond the billions in government funds the company is slated to receive from the CHIPS Act. Intel has already been allocated $8.5 billion in grants and $11 billion in low-interest loans. But the Semafor report saying that top officials at the Commerce Department and lawmakers, including Senator Mark Warner, have discussed whether Intel needs more help. Talks were described as precautionary, but show that Intel is now viewed as strategically important. One option could be a private sector merger encouraged by the government. Reports say that there's little appetite for a 2008-style bailout, and this goes to the whole idea of how much government funds have gone into Intel, the idea of picking winners and losers, industrial policy. What kind of face are you making?
No, we said all along, and
it was always going to be a tough road.
When the CHIPS Act was passed, it seemed good. It seemed like Intel could be the one you maybe want to do it. But
the question is whether you needed to make. To me, the thing that I always thought was that you needed to make a lot of bets, meaning you couldn't just put all your bets on one firm. The problem was that this issue of chip making is like a capital game. It literally is a money game. You can't start building. You can't have 12 fabs or 12 companies with fabs because it's just too expensive. And so you almost have to bet on one or two or three companies to do it maximum. There's really not that many more. The question is why they didn't do it to Amazon.
If it was 5 years ago, you would have said, of course you're going to give Intel a lot of money. It's our leading chip. But look, it shows you how quickly technology changes. I mean, Nvidia it's $3 trillion versus $90 billion. It's just
I was in favor of this at the time with the CHIPS Act because the idea of having local sourcing it was so important from not just pricing and American manufacturing, but from a
national
defense
security
perspective, national security and defense. I wonder, in hindsight, if it would have been better if we would have offered massive tax incentives to do it instead of cash, would it have worked if you had done that or not?
I think it wasn't even enough money. I think they looked at. By the way, some of this is tax incentives. And some of it they haven't gotten yet. I mean, that's the other piece of it.
You wonder if they will get it.
The only good news here is that the money is given out in tranches, and the credits are given out in tranches based on performance. The issue at this point is that Intel is not going to be able to, quote unquote, perform.
It's just the instances where would the government have bet on MySpace? The instances where the government is better than just market forces is very rare, and it goes all the way back. I mean, iPencil, go back to 1776. I mean, it gets tiresome to hear about free markets being more effective, but they really do work better in just allocating capital, and it's very difficult. I'm not even blaming the government. No one probably could have known 5 years ago what was going to happen to Intel and Nvidia, but it's just like, don't even try. I mean, I guess maybe you're right. If they could have just made it so that the winner in the marketplace had an easier time or had some assistance.
But Andrew's
instead
right.
of picking who would be the winner.
I just don't know. Like the tax incentives, was it enough because it's so expensive to build these things? I don't know how you could set it up and incentivize it, but.
Well, even with all that help, Intel still is just.
Well, part of the problem was they didn't give the money out soon enough.
Right.
It took a long time to start handing out.
But the question is, what company would have you given it to?
I don't know
who
does
would have
what it.
done it.
I'm not an expert.
But here's
who could build that.
But I think the problem is, I remember talking to leaders of companies like Amazon and Microsoft and Google, all of whom, by the way, are quote unquote making their own chips. But they're not really making their own chips.
Right,
they're designing their chips, and then
someone's got to make it.
And it was never clear that any of those companies wanted to make their own chips on their own because the economics of them.
There are people other than Intel.
We're never great.
Right.
There are people other than Intel, but they might. ASML is not here, right? And
well,
ASML doesn't make chips.
Okay, who does? Micron? Someone. There are other foundries.
TSMC.
But they don't make them here, and they're trying to bring them here.
But they are. They're getting money to build some of that stuff here too.
They are. They are getting money.
Maybe Intel was the only. That's the problem when
it was the clear American company.
When everything's moved out of the country because it's a commodity business, you try and bring it back. No one has really left. It's Fed week. What are we?
At some point, by the way, on the flip side, someone's going to go look at Intel, and they're going to look at all the lobbying money that was spent to get that money, because they also probably had, I'm probably, by a long shot, had the greatest lobbying effort to get that money for themselves.
Right.
Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway sold another big chunk of its Apple stake, downsizing its biggest equity holding for 4 quarters in a row. That's according to Berkshire's quarterly results, which were released on Saturday morning. In total, Berkshire has sold about 67% of its Apple stake since the end of the third quarter last year. Berkshire has also reaped more than $10 billion since mid-July from offloading its longtime Bank of America investment. Overall, if you're looking at that cash hoard, Berkshire sold more than $36 billion in stock in the third quarter, and it didn't buy back any Berkshire shares during the quarter. As a result, that cash pile grew to a record $325 billion. So they have now more in cash than they have in their entire portfolio of stocks.
That's a lot.
And
they got a lot out of a lot of Apple. I mean, that is, what did you say? They sold 2/3. 67%?
67% of it.
But what do you think he is getting ready for?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
This is like when you start building the Ark. That's what it looks like to me.
Right.
I don't know what else to think.
Yeah.
Is there another?
It reminds me of
is there something else I'm supposed to think?
Post-2001.
No.
It reminds you of post-2001 when he thought markets were overvalued and had a lot of cash.
I don't know. I don't know if it's macro or Apple either. Yeah. I mean, Apple.
Well, it's not just Apple; it's Bank of America too.
Well, in technology, Apple. What's going to happen? No more iPhones? Isn't AI going to just make it even more important to go to the next iPhone?
By the way, we should point out, even after 67% of it stock being sold, it's still the largest position they have in anything by far. American Express is second. But if anyone's going to lead us
into technology, into AI, into all these things, isn't Apple going to be a main part of it?
Buffett's never been a tech investor. He looked at Apple as a consumer products play.
Yeah. Well, why is it no longer as good a consumer products play? I mean, that's a lot to sell.
I can give you the argument.
Yeah? What is it?
The phone is the phone. It's not the rapid sort of
That's gone.
changes
It's done.
are just not going to be there. People are owning their phone for 3 and 4 and 5 years now.
But with
And they
AI,
used to have
that should make a difference. That should hasten the transition.
Not really. It may just be a software
Look, other
situation.
speculation that's been out there is that he's selling a lot of this because he's made so much money on it. If there are tax changes that come in, tax policy changes, you would be paying much more potentially in capital gains next year. So there's a lot of different looks.
He wanted to
at
pay
this.
You know, though, he always used to say that he never made investments or
Because of
operated
taxes.
businesses because
Yeah.
of taxes.
Right.
He
Nobody
used to
should.
say that
I'm just saying this is what's out there in
Right.
speculation, and if you are
What if
thinking
saying
that
something and
changes
doing
could come
something
next
are
year.
two
Well, I
different
wonder.
things.
No, I mean, by the way, you may be right. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I don't know
he's-
either. I'm just saying this. There's a bunch of speculation. I read everything over the weekend.
Right.
There's a bunch of different lines of speculation on what it could be. People point to that. They point to potential changes that you've seen overall in the portfolio. And again, this is still his biggest position. So, and by the way, at the annual meeting in May, he said, absent something really crazy, this would still be his largest position this May. And it is. I don't think people anticipated just how much they've sold, because before it was at a round number. That round number is still there, but it's a much lower round number.
We haven't talked enough about Sherman Williams. I'm so proud of that company. And isn't that the one with the
paint.
going all the way?
Wait, is that?
No, it's going all the way over the globe. It's painting. It looks like the globe, but you're going to suffocate because there's so much paint.
What else do they do besides
going
paint?
all the household. It's a building play, and it's better than Dow probably.
Coatings. Yeah, it's obviously bigger, but I was just
Great
trying to figure out
logo.
what else they do.
I don't know who came up with it or when. I'm going to find out when it came up with it and who came up with it, because it's a great logo. And Greek media company Antenna Group is in talks to acquire Time from Salesforce co-founder Marc Benioff. Sources tell NBC News that deal talks are still early, may not come to fruition. Benioff acquired Time in 2018 for $190 million. Sources say the talks have with Antenna centered around a price below that of about $150 million.
And there's been a lot of spending during it too, so there's additional losses. So even if you get $150 million for it, I don't know the extent of the losses during the ownership period.
Right.
It's tough, but this has been the issue. I mean, between Jeff Bezos buying the Washington Post now, who's losing, what are we saying, $50 to $100 million a year, Marc Benioff doing this, it's a hard business.
He didn't buy it to make money, I don't think.
Well, that's the question.
probably didn't buy it to
Not to
lose
make money.
money.
I think most people are trying to do this,
Trying to break even.
hopefully to break even and keep these iconic institutions in business. That's I think the goal.
Icons aren't what they used to be. I don't know what this Greek company would want with Time either. I might give them. They don't use the drachma anymore. I might give them 150 million drachma. Maybe not.
Cheese will be next.
Coming up on Squawk Pod, our full interview with media mogul Barry Diller. He ran a studio in his 30s, later ran 20th Century Fox, and now serves as chairman of Expedia and of IAC, which owns about 25 media brands. He talks big media mergers and politics. And he's got a request to voters still on the fence about the economy.
Please split your ticket. Vote Democratic and split your ticket so that the economic part of this can be protected.
Plus, a special cell phone cameo.
This is my
Call
wife.
coming
I
through.
guarantee you.
That's just iconic fashion designer Diane von Furstenberg, Barry Diller's wife. You never know what you're going to get on Squawk Box. We'll be right back. This is Squawk Pod.
Straight up on Becky. 3, 2, 1. Up on Becky. Cue.
You're watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernen and Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Another big guest joins us right now on set to talk business and tomorrow's election. Barry Diller, IAC and Expedia chairman and senior executive. You have been quite outspoken about this election.
Yes,
throughout.
for my sins.
We've
My
now spoken to
eventual
a lot of
sins.
different folks on all different sides of the aisle. And I'm
Yeah.
curious where you think things stand right now. And
Drew, if I know. I'll tell you what, I am incredibly optimistic. I'm optimistic for 28.
for 28.
Yep. that is where my optimism lies, because if Trump prevails, it will reform the Democratic Party, and I think that would be extraordinarily healthy. And on the other side, it will send him to the dust heap of history, which is what I would prefer, but that's a personal characterization, which is not befitting the level of this discussion.
Let me ask you a question about your willingness to speak out the way you have as publicly against former Vice President, former
At
President
least I'm
Trump.
consistent,
Excuse me?
going fairly way back.
Well, no. I ask because we were talking with Jeffrey Sonnenfeld last week, who has this piece, and a lot of them said that Fortune 500 CEOs may be voting for Kamala Harris, but do not want to say anything publicly out of fear, and whether that's a distinction or difference from the way the world worked a decade, 2 or 3 decades ago.
Yeah, I think that, look, there's reason, there's rationale behind being somewhat afraid because of the retaliation comments that have been made by the previous President Trump. So I can totally understand why people are worried about that.
But CEOs don't want to speak out about anything.
Well, of course they do. Well, by the way, in a way, why should they?
That's what I mean.
I think that they can sometimes make distinctions when there are great events at work that they ought to speak on.
Right.
But generally, those CEOs represent their companies, and their companies should be apolitical.
Is this a great event?
Yeah.
That should require it?
This is a great event.
It is.
I'm afraid so. Or not I'm afraid so, I'm glad so. The one thing I really want, really badly, is for it to be decisive. I want it to be over tomorrow night.
Right.
I want it to be over, and I want a 5-point spread.
For whoever wins.
Yes. Now, I know that that's probably unlikely, but oh my God, for all of us, wouldn't that be the best possible thing to happen? Absolute decisiveness.
A great event, but still, it's such a close election. If you're running a public company, half of your customers are going to be mad if you speak out.
When you do half, it's going to be, what, 70-30 on some issues, 30-30,
Right. But
70. So anytime you take any position, if you're in charge of a public company that sells to consumers, you've got no business taking positions.
That's what I mean. I don't think.
Again, unless it's some.
There's a lot of. There were a lot. Maybe less this time, but there were also very few CEOs that would speak out for Trump 4 years ago. Very few that would speak out for him because
certainly a lot of them are piling on now.
What was your reaction? I know you're friends with him to the Washington Post and Jeff Bezos' decision not to endorse the candidate.
I think it was absolutely principled. I know Jeff very well, and I talked with him about it. The mistake they made, and it was a mistake admitted by him, was timing. And the reasons underlying that timing were mechanical. They weren't determinative. They made a blunder. It should have happened months before.
Right.
And it didn't. And that's the issue with it. But I absolutely, first of all, I thought, for those who wonder about why he did it, whatever, he did write a really extensive piece, op-ed in the Post, that I think explained it.
You think he wishes he didn't buy the Post?
That I don't know.
When you think about the economic side of this, we had a conversation, I think, in Paris, where I asked you about the regulatory environment. Lena Khan, you made some comments about Lena that you were, I think that you took back to some degree.
Well, because it was stupid. It was like, I said she's a dope just because my flip brain went out on it, and I certainly shouldn't have said that. For one reason,
that was after you always got arrested for trying to come on the set, wasn't it? By the French police. She almost got it, right? Just trying to get to where we were.
Yes, this is true. But she also did something quite extraordinary during the shutdown of MGM Resorts, which we own a big position in. She happened to come through the doors of MGM in Las Vegas to register. And this was when everything was shut down and they were doing everything by hand. And she comes up to the desk and they say, we want your identification, please. And she said, well, I don't have to do that. And they said, well, you really, you have to do that. And she went through this registration process. And 3 days later, MGM got whatever the official thing is, an inquiry about them taking terrible advantage of people who were coming to the FTC caused an action against MGM because she didn't personally like that these people who were frantically trying to help people asked her for something.
Wait, you have to show your identification every hotel you ever.
I don't know. I just telling you what the
Crazy.
The reason I raised Lena Khan is,
But anyway,
you know, we have
that's just a little anecdote, just for the tastiness of the moment.
Yeah.
Barry, there's a whole bunch of folks, including John Paulson and others who've come on who are supporting former President Trump, who say, you know what, that they're disregarding the character issue, which I think is the main issue for you, and they're saying from a policy perspective, economic policy perspective, regulatory perspective, taxes, go through the list, that they believe that he will be a greater benefit to the country than her.
I find Trump a very caring person. He cares about the American people. He works incredibly hard. Personally, he's a very warm and kind individual. I can see why he's angry. He's had to spend over $200 million a year defending himself against government lawsuits, almost all of them totally spurious. So I think, you know, there is a sense of anger in him about the weaponization of the Justice Department on the state and federal level, pursuing him as a political opponent. And I can understand his anger about that.
What do you think about that?
I listened to Mr. Paulson, who, listen, I certainly understand what he's doing. He's running for Treasury Secretary, so he's running for office. He's not like a dispassionate person. He's he's running for office. But I'm amazed that when the character issue is brought up, that it is not responded to. I mean, that whenever you ask this question or press it, there's basically no answer other than that he's a kind and emotionally available person. But every statement he makes is not one of those. So I don't know how you just discount it.
And therefore,
Joe,
Well, you know, I always have this argument with
I know you accuse
there's
me of-
there's whataboutism, and I can point to character issues. I don't want to even get into that game. I don't want to get into that game with Joe Biden, with Kamala Harris,
but don't you, in a way, at least have to this extent, which is, I'm not extolling candidate Harris, and I'm not saying anything about her, quote, exemplary character.
Or Joe Biden.
But here, or Joe Biden. But they are and have always been decent people who went into public service. That was what they did.
I don't agree.
You don't think that?
No, I don't agree. I don't agree
with
how
what
they
part of
got
it?
to where they are. I don't agree in terms of Joe Biden. I've looked at his entire career. It's littered with character problems all the way back to plagiarism, to cheating.
Wait a minute, isn't there a difference? I mean, you know,
between
talk about
that and
moral
what?
relativism.
Being with a porn star?
Isn't
I mean, I don't care about that. I don't care about.
It's not. I don't care about the porn star either. What I do care about is the statements that he has made that I did.
Half of those have been taken out of context half the time.
Oh.
The one about Liz Cheney that was just out, the one about the bloodbath, the media does it constantly, Barry.
Well, forget the media. Let's not do what the media.
Did you vote for Bill Clinton twice?
Oh, yes. Yes. And by the way,
No problems with character issues there.
as far as his decency,
Yeah, as far as Juanita Broderick or Paula Jones, or I can name
why are you
Kathleen
talking about?
Willis.
Why?
Because
are you,
there's good character
wait a second.
issues.
No, wait a minute.
You had no problem with Bill
Wait-
Clinton's character issues?
Wait a minute. With regards to sexual escapades.
That's what we talk about with Trump
the
all the
sin
time.
of man,
Oh.
with what guys do.
Okay, then
now, I'm not
let's move on to the other character.
I'm not justifying.
You're talking
I'm
about
just-
January 6th now, or which character issue are we talking about? Because usually we talk about E. Jean Carroll.
No,
or
I'm not talking
Stormy
about
Daniels.
I
or-
don't. I think all of that's hooey. I
Okay,
think the
then which
lawsuits.
char-
I think
then
most
pick
of
your
those lawsuits
character
are wrong. But I think there's just simply no question. I mean, how can you even actually argue it? You can say, actually, I don't care because as president, his record as president is that none of those terrible things happened last time, but they may happen this time. So you have to deal with that.
You mean in terms of not leaving office, or?
Well, in terms of anything, in terms of all, you stack up the statements.
Then
Just-
the people, Jay Clayton, Gary Cohn, John Paulson running, maybe you have a one-off for each one of those, but it's a very close election. Then we're back to where you either are judging half the country as either being stupid or being non-virtuous or amoral.
I judge them as progressivism and elitism gone wrong for a long period of time.
No, but people who are able to know all that, everything you know about Trump, everything you know about Trump, many people know everything you know about Trump and still choose to support him.
Yeah.
How?
Because I think they're bitter about the way this government for the last 20 or 30 years has actually, I think, misappropriated progressivism in many different ways.
But you don't think they're
and I think that's valid.
You don't think they're bad people for supporting someone so amoral or flawed?
No, I don't. I think, but I do think that actually what I would like to happen, and I have no ability to change anybody's anything, but for people who are worried, because I think most people who are voting for Trump are going to vote it on for economic reasons and worries about
I think it's because it's binary.
And worries about this administration.
Right.
Please split your ticket. Vote Democratic and split your ticket so that the economic part of this can be protected. Then we get the best of a fairly poor period, meaning we don't get him, because I do think it's a bad thing, and we'll live through 4 years. And what will happen out of that? By the way, I'm kind of okay either way. I'm really not, but I say it. But I think that if, in fact, Trump wins, the Democratic Party will redo itself and put up a solid candidate in 2028.
Do you think the flip side is true? If the Democrats win, that the Republican Party changes materially, or that the...
Yeah. Oh.
You do?
He's 78.
No, I don't think that Trump would run again.
Right.
I just wonder whether you think, whatever you think the remnants of the MAGA movement are, whether that becomes the central tenet of the party, or the party itself shifts.
I don't think it's a movement. I think it's him.
I mean, even...
So I think if he disappears, there is no movement.
But Barry, it's not just economic issues. I look at the way we have handled Iran in the Middle East for the past 4 years has been a pig, whatever you want to call it. It's been an absolute disaster, and that's why we're in this mess right now. When Trump was there, it ended with the Abraham Accords, moving the Jerusalem for the embassy.
A lot of silliness with the North Korean leader.
Okay, you're back to these superficial things. The world was a much safer place, Barry. A much safer. And
by the way, the world was a much safer place because Ukraine and the Middle East blew. And who would have predicted that?
You
and
can't
who
say
would have
that it's not.
prevented that?
You can't say it's definitely not linked. You can't.
All right, maybe it's
the
linked or
weakness
not.
and
But by the way,
the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Wait a second.
Afghanistan. How about the border?
I would like two things.
How about the border?
I would hope for two things.
Which are?
One is that she has a Republican, for sure, as and somebody with real foreign policy chops as defense. And I would like Elon Musk to be asked, given that he is an American patriot, to come into this administration and cut costs.
Well, that's
do you think either of those are likely to happen?
He is really good at is that.
So, do you think that's either of those are likely to happen, though? Have you been given any?
Well, I do think she has said she will appoint a Republican to the cabinet. Now,
not as
I hope it's not for Commerce Secretary.
And you would like to see her appoint, if she wins, appoint Elon Musk?
Absolutely. Call him and say, you know what, Mr. Musk? You are truly a great cutting executive. Look at what he did with Twitter.
Right.
Come in, help our government. You've got absolute authority. Cut everywhere that makes sense.
By the way, what do you think about his role in this election?
Well, I've said before, I think he is a deserved megalomaniac. He deserves to be a megalomaniac because because of what he is able, what he has accomplished and able to be accomplished. Enabled. And I think that his, therefore, coming on center stage and jumping up is like weird but okay, because he's a megalomaniac, but he deserves to be.
What do you think? Are you talking about the elites and everybody else in this sort of divide? What do you think about just this perception now that there's, frankly, billionaires on each side of this campaign that are and that the candidates are sort of marionettes of some sort?
What I don't understand for anybody with wealth, anybody with real that kind of heavy wealth, how they could do anything that benefits their sole economic interest as a means of judging anything is beyond me.
Do you think that's
to
true?
make
'Cause I'm not-
another dollar for a rich person?
But do you believe that? So a lot of times you hear Democrats or folks on the left say, you know what, the folks who are supporting Trump are doing it for their wallet. It's all about the money. That's all it really is. Is that what you think? Because I think when I've had conversations with these folks, unless you think I'm completely Pollyanna-ish about this, that there are so many other issues that not only that they point
They're
to, but
voting
that
their economic interest.
You think that's all it is?
I don't
Well,
say
that
it's.
can't be right in
I don't say
a blue state,
wait,
Barry.
Wait a second.
Can't be right in a blue state.
I don't think that's all it is, but I think it's the vast majority of it. It can't. These are people who do understand the differences, the issues of character and other issues.
I could argue it's about power. I mean, look, proximity to power is power, and so some of those folks who've aligned themselves.
Well, they're all delusionary.
Right.
Anybody who thinks that because they do anything, they are going to be able to influence or be close to quote to power, close quote. They might get invited to a state dinner, but that's about it.
Many are voting for what they see as everybody's wallet, because real income rose much more quickly during the Trump administration. Real income is still down from when Joe Biden took office.
Yeah.
People feel like they have less money.
By the way,
real income was surging.
Look at this economy.
For me, Barry, I had to pay. You can't be talking about me, because I had to pay much more after 2017. Much more because of not being able to the salt cap and everything. So it has nothing to do with but I do believe, just maybe you don't think Trump is a Republican.
Excuse me, Joe,
in general, I would like free markets more than socialism. I would like less government intervention, less regulation, lower taxes, lower corporate taxes, lower capital, all those things. Not about my wallet, because I think it's better for everybody's wallet.
Yes.
It's not personal. I think so. I don't think you should.
I understand
discount
that, but I was using this argument as a class of billionaire, which I don't think.
As a what?
Hey, Barry.
Class of billionaire, which I don't think you've risen to yet.
Barry,
No, but you have, but we're not allowed to say it.
Barry, does Expedia and Uber, does a tie-up make sense for Uber?
As an industrial combination, sure, but it's not going to happen.
That's
full stop.
So
it's not going to happen.
You're saying it aloud. Okay, that's good that we're getting it from the horse's mouth. We talked to Dara on the broadcast last week.
Yeah.
And he didn't go full on.
I'm sure that you'd be shocked to know that we're definitely not commenting on any particular deal one way or the other. You know, for us, our focus right now is organic growth. And when you have a business that's growing top line at 20+%, you've got bottom line growing at 50+%. We have free cash flow now that we're allocating more and more to buying back our own shares. So you combine kind of the compounding of bottom line and reducing share count that we expect to start doing next year, you get very, very high returns for shareholders. So for us right now, the bar for any kind of acquisition has never been higher, and the focus is really on organic growth. To the extent that we go out and do M&A, it will tend to be, at this point, smaller deals that are much more kind of closer to home in terms of what we do. An example of that is a proposed deal to buy Foodpanda in Taiwan.
It's just not going to happen.
Let me ask you a different question.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that there's a sense that this company will get acquired or merge with somebody else at some point?
Expedia?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Because?
I shouldn't say one. First of all, I don't think it's in Expedia's interest. Expedia is now beginning a period, I think, of real growth.
Okay.
And is now, for I think the first time in some time, has now got a great leader who's doing every right thing with the company. So I think if ever there's a wrong time for Expedia to actually exchange its shares, it is now. So that is
right.
The big reason.
Tell us we
and
gotta
the
leave.
small reason, which is whatever, is I don't want to do it.
Right.
And it's not I don't want to do it because I don't want to do it.
Right.
I don't think that Expedia should be sold, and I have enough shares, voting shares, that I probably can't get anything done, but I can certainly stop something from being done.
Would you be interested in a beautiful basket of shiny cable companies all put in one little entity
I
be able to nimbly.
I hope they don't do it, because I don't think I think Comcast is better with them. But if they do spin all these off, that would be a really solid enterprise.
Why do you say you hope that they don't do it?
Because I think that they're so well hedged. This is a company that's got really the best hand, because they've not only got the great. This is my wife. I guarantee you.
It's Brian
okay.
Roberts. Brian Roberts.
You want to take it?
No, I think you should say hello to Dion. Hi.
Hello, Dion.
I'm on camera.
Hi,
We're
Dion.
on TV right now. We'll call you back.
Oh, you are?
We are.
You are on TV?
We are. honey.
CNBC right now.
And she's
You've been on.
She's in
She's in
Venice.
Venice.
She's in Venice.
She was
Bye,
on
honey.
in Davos.
In Athens.
Oh, in Athens.
Oh, and
Athens? You were in Venice 4 hours
I
ago.
know. I just arrived in Athens.
Okay.
But
Bye.
so what is going on?
The question of the world.
So you were saying that you hope that they don't do it because.
Because
And this is Comcast
No,
spinning off the cable channel.
Because I think they're so well hedged in so many areas of media that I think those balances are really good for each other. And I do not believe, listen, cable is going to continue to decline. It ain't going to decline to nothing. There is going to be, we are in a process of rebundling.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone from bundling over here with full cable, right? To this period, which is about probably a 10-year arc of going to direct connect for individual services, which, let me just make the, which we will watch this, we will get right back to total rebundling. So when that happens, all of these, not all of them, the key ones, your CNBC, the other key cable properties will be part of a reconnected bundle. So I would never get rid of them, but whatever. It's not
Barry, I
my
want to
company.
thank you. I think advocates would say that they're thinking that the spinoff could actually be the bundler of those things, but that's a longer conversation for another day. Barry Diller, thank you so much for being here. We will see where the election heads, and hope to talk to you, of course, afterwards.
Thank you all.
And that is Squawk Pod for today, this election eve. Thanks for listening. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern to get the smartest takes and analysis from our TV show right into your ears. Follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.